Hi, I'm your host, Larry Smith, and you're listening to Speak Out Podcast, the community outreach of the Lawrence County Career Technical Center in Moulton, Alabama. Today, my co-host is Madison Beck, a sophomore at Hatton High School. Madison's a career tech student in Mrs. Bennett's Salon and Spa Management class. Hi, Madison. Let's welcome our guest to the show.
Hi, Larry. We are excited to introduce our guest for the podcast, Mr. Adam Keller.
Thanks for coming and being with us today.
Yeah, thanks
Mr.
for the
Keller.
opportunity.
Adam Keller is a union stagehand in Huntsville, where he's a member and political coordinator for the International Alliance of Theatrical and Stage Employees, Local 900, who provide the behind-the-scenes production labor for live events at the Braun Center and Orion Amphitheater. Adam also represents his union on the North Alabama Council, co-hosts and co-produces Alabama's only union talk radio show, and works as the Northeast Alabama organizer for Alabama Arise, a nonprofit coalition fighting poverty at the state policy level. Adam previously taught high school history and spent over 5 years representing the Huntsville City Schools employees. And Madison, I think you have our first question.
Yes, sir. Mr. Keller, you really have a variety of experiences that are interesting for our audience. Can you tell us what a union is and a little more about your current job?
Sure. So let's start with what a labor union is. It is just an organization of workers. When workers come together, two or more, they join and they form an organization to represent their interest and to advocate for themselves. And so that's what a union is. There's different types, and we can talk about, some of the different types that there are, but I have two different jobs, and I also have multiple volunteer roles. They're all related to unions. I'm a community organizer with Alabama Arise. Like you said, it's a nonprofit, and in that job, we are unionized with the Communication Workers of America, CWA. What I do in that job is fight poverty, and we do that at the policy level. So we advocate for better policies, basically, to uplift poor people. And my job as an organizer is to go out in the community to talk to people, listen to people, do town halls and events like that, get people to contact their legislator. And so that's my main day job. And then on the side, I do work as a stagehand. Like Mr. Smith mentioned, we do the behind-the-scenes work at the concerts and musicals and plays. Any live event happening in Huntsville, that's our folks, and we do that, putting together the video boards to the sound systems, you name it.
Well, what unions are in our area, and do they offer opportunities for young people after high school?
There are so many different types of unions in the area, specifically a lot of building trades unions. And so that would be like your electrical workers, your iron workers, plumbers, and pipe fitters. So folks who want to work with their hands, who maybe aren't interested in college but want to do something after school to have a solid career, they can do a building trades union. They can get into an apprenticeship program, learn the trade, and then they can go work anywhere in the country that they want to work and make a good living with a good benefit.
Well, as I mentioned before the show, both my dad and my brother were longtime union members. How do you, as far as a young person finding an opportunity through the union and with the union, how do they approach that or go about that? Back in my day, my brother, for instance, was referred by my father.
Right.
Is it still like that, or
It is still like that to some extent. It helps to know folks and to have a connection. But if you reach out to any labor union in the area, especially those building trades unions that have apprenticeship programs,
yes,
that's what's unique about them is they actually train their own workforce. Which is a little different than other unions you might think of, like at a car factory, right, where they represent the workers employed by the car manufacturer. But either way, you reach out to them, let them know you're interested in a career, you want to know what the options are, and they can get your foot in the door.
So you could pretty much just maybe Google that union?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I represent my union on the North Alabama Labor Council. Every part of the state has a labor council, and that's where the unions come together and collaborate. So you can always reach out to them. You have a Northwest Labor Council. You can reach out to them and see, like, hey, what are some opportunities for me?
Thank you. Madison?
Can we talk more specifically about your union and what IATSE is?
Sure. So, yeah, it's a mouthful. The International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees. And I think the full name is even longer than that. But most of our members work in Hollywood and Broadway. So if you ever watch the end of a movie, you watch the end of a TV show, at the credits at the very bottom, you'll see our little union logo, let you know that our people worked on the crew. And it can be, the job I do as a hand is basic entry level. I push stuff, I pull stuff, I set stuff up, I follow my directions from our team. I could be carpentry or electrical, setting up the lights for a show, setting up the speakers. But we also have hair and makeup, wardrobe, spotlight operators, very specialized jobs, and especially if you get into the film industry or out in Broadway, there can be all kinds of specialized jobs within our one union.
And that kind of really does segue into the next question about your job as a stagehand. Sounds interesting, and telling us more about it. How did you actually get started doing that? I know you have a background as an educator.
Right, yeah. So I was an educator, and the truth is I needed work, and I had a lot of buddies in the labor movement from doing union work, and they needed help right after the COVID shutdown. Of course, live entertainment went away for a while. They lost a lot of their workers. So once things cranked back up and concerts were coming back in town, they were looking for folks. I needed work. And so it was a perfect thing. I told them I wasn't very experienced with blue-collar work. I didn't hardly know how to hold a wrench, but they trained me and showed me the ropes, literally.
So your union and other unions would have apprenticeship programs or offer training?
Right.
And would you have to come in having some kind of aptitude toward that, or?
I certainly didn't. I'll be honest with you. I had no aptitude towards it whatsoever, but they were like, hey, if you will follow directions, if you'll show up on time and you'll listen to what we have to tell you, we'll show you how to do this. And they really have worked with me, and I've been able to work on some amazing concerts, some of my favorite bands that have come through town, and I got to be backstage. And how cool is that? To see the final performance. It starts out as just a bunch of trucks in your dock, and next thing you know, it's something bringing happiness to a lot of people.
What career opportunities are available in our area and beyond for students interested in theater? Yeah,
so obviously Huntsville would be one of your closest places for a lot of theater work, but if you're willing to branch out, go to Nashville, Birmingham, Atlanta, there's a lot of opportunities in the South. And like I mentioned, there's different types of roles you can play. So what I'm doing, setting up the lights or setting up video wall, could be very different from what other people want to do in the theater industry. Most in the touring theater industry, most of those jobs are union, the actors, the musicians, as well as the crew. So there's different roles you could play there, but specializing in something like hair and makeup or the wardrobe department, specializing in learning how to use the spotlights, those are jobs that give you a lot of extra security because not everyone knows how to do that. So I would recommend getting your foot in the door somewhere local like Huntsville. Come down to Local 900, learn the ropes a little bit, and then you never know, you could go on tour with a band or a play and see the country.
Well, I mean, and do these jobs really include everything? Like, so you're helping to unload equipment to do the load outs and ins, and you're doing lighting and video mag, and you mentioned makeup and wardrobe. I didn't know that. Right,
yeah. And so anything that makes a musical work or a concert work, we're touching it somehow, some way. So we have people who are just truck loaders, and that's what they do, is help unload and load the trucks. But then we also have folks who, are more specialized. They're electricians, for example. And so the really cool thing is, for me, when I show up, I'm not always sure what I'll be doing that day. But you work on a team. You're with a team of folks. You're never by yourself, right? And that's what I love about it. You are part of a team. Everyone pulls their weight, literally pulls their weight to make it happen.
So does your union and other unions, my experience with my dad and my brother was that there were job placement services with their union, and so they would kind of wait to get called out Does yours work the same way? How do you find the job?
Yeah, so ours is a little different because we just have a couple of venues in town that we are the exclusive labor provider, right? So all of our gigs are going to be at the Orion or the Von Braun Center. But the calls themselves, like the concerts, the plays that come through town, that usually is based on seniority and experience, right? So they want to make sure they have a good balance of folks that they bring to the.
Right.
It's not all new people who show up for a big rock concert, for example. But that is how it works in a lot of the building trades unions, where they will find the work for you, which, like I said, is a little different from, say, United Auto Workers at the Ford assembly plant, right, where you show up to Ford every single day, and the union is in that one workplace.
Well, and we already have kind of touched on all this, but if a high school student wanted to explore the possibility of a career in one of these fields and also prepare for it, then how would that person get started? I'm thinking we talked about just call them.
Right.
Call the union and see if you could maybe put in an application. Or,
yeah, absolutely.
Or
it could be that informal where you just reach out locally to who's available to the local labor unions or labor council and put your name in there. Go Build Alabama is a website that's out there that has all the registered apprenticeship programs throughout the state. So that's a great way if you're interested in working with your hands to find out, those opportunities. But I also want to emphasize that unions exist in any kind of workplace, white collar office jobs, people with college degrees, you name it.
Well, and talking about that, so if you were going to think about doing an apprenticeship, you're filling out the application, then you're going to put your education level right in there.
Right.
But is a certain level of education required?
Typically for the apprenticeship programs, it's just going to be a high school.
School.
They expect you to finish high school and come on down after high school. Some people, they wait a few years after high school. It takes them a while to figure out what they want to do, but whether you're leaving fresh out of high school or a few years down the road, the apprenticeship program is like a college education, except you're being paid while you learn. You earn while you learn. They start you off at a lower pay rate, of course, than what you'll make once you graduate. But you also get benefits during that apprenticeship time. So you're learning on the job, you're making a little money, you have health care, and then eventually once you graduate, you can go and get the full-time work anywhere.
And this could perhaps be a lifetime career for someone.
Oh, absolutely. Most folks who do this, they do it for the lifetime because the benefits are so great. Yeah. That is one of the things that people love about union jobs is the retirement pensions. A lot of these jobs are hard on your body. You can't do them for 50 years, right? So you want to have a good retirement where you can retire after 20, 25, 30 years and have a good living after that.
Okay.
We understand you also have a podcast. Can you tell us more about that?
Yes. So I joined a program called the Valley Labor Report a couple years ago. It is the only union talk show in the state, and we are now on 4 radio stations across 3 states. And we also do it on YouTube and Facebook. And podcasts, right? So we try to get the word out to different people through different mediums. The radio stations are pretty diverse. It's a conservative talk station, a black soul station, community radio station, right? So we're just trying to get the word out to different audiences. And it's been really cool to interview workers and union leaders and journalists and politicians and historians, you name it, we have talked to all kinds of people. And it's all about labor unions and working class people in the South and the issues that are relevant to us.
How do you line up your guests for those? Are you involved in lining up the guests?
I am, yeah. And a lot of times it really is as simple as just asking. Especially once I explain what the program is, most people think it's kind of neat and kind of weird that we're doing this, honestly. Like a couple of guys in Alabama have a union talk show. How weird is that? And people are fascinated to come on and talk to us about it. And of course, regular working people don't get on the news very often, right? So when we interview people locally, they're really excited to get to tell their story.
And so you have a presence on Facebook. I think that's where I found
Yes,
you.
yes. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. We're on all the platforms out there. And, we just try to mix the online content and the traditional old school FM, AM talk radio.
And how often are you in production with that?
We go live every Saturday morning, and we are live for 3 hours, which is a long time to be talking in front of a mic nonstop. But thankfully, I have a co-host, and like I said, we have guests, and so that helps balance it out. It can be a lot of work to prep for, but it's a lot of fun.
Well, and if our viewers want to find you on Facebook, how do they look?
They can just look for the Valley Labor Report, and they can find it from there. Really appreciate the opportunity to share about that, because it's always important to get people's stories out there.
Well, and just kind of summing up, is there any other advice that you would offer students who have an interest in theater and stage work?
Sure, yeah. For theater and stage work, I would say just get your foot in the door. Find something, even if you start off as what they call a hand, and it's, you're just pushing boxes your first few days. That's fine. Just get your foot in the door, get to know people, get that experience. And then, just outside of that, even if theater and stage is not really your thing, there are so many unions out there that represent so many different types of jobs. There are opportunities. No matter what kind of job you're interested in, chances are there's a union out there that's interested in working with you.
And just right here in Huntsville, workers are still needed for those jobs.
Right, absolutely, yes. The iron workers are always looking for new apprentices. The Brotherhood of Electrical Workers are always looking for folks. The Laborers International Union, they do a lot of construction. They would love to have more folks to help them on Brown's Ferry and do the construction work that they do.
Cool. Well, thank you for being our guest today on Speak Out Podcast, Mr. Keller.
Yes, thank you so much. I enjoyed it. Appreciate the opportunity, and I love what y'all are doing.
You've been listening to Speak Out Podcast, a community outreach of the Lawrence County Career Technical Center in Moulton, Alabama. I'm your host, Larry Smith, and I'd like to thank my co-host, Madison Beck, and our guest, Mr. Adam Keller. Please check out our podcast on the Lawrence County Career Technical School website, and we hope you'll join us for future podcasts.